live, gamers. I'm your delightful host, Seymour.
I'm your delightful host, Grape.
Yeah, I'm gonna change your name to Grape on this show, honestly. So, Grape, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. I said pretty good like 3 times. It's pretty crazy, honestly. So, what are we doing today?
So today's actually a day that I know for sure I've been excited for since we started this show and we discussed this segment. But we're doing a segment where we're taking all of the best childhood shows, discussing them. Today is just the animated aspect of it. Next week, I believe, is the
Well, next
real
week.
life type.
No, 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 no. So
Next week is continuing the bracket. Then we'll get into real life like in a
then we'll get
couple
into
weeks.
real life. Yeah. So this is just
Um,
kind of like a pre-debate to the actual debate that'll be happening next week and the week after,
mhm.
and then for another 2 weeks for live action. So, to re-explain, I guess if you want to explain it, you can, but I'll explain if you don't want to.
Basically, what we're doing is we're taking all of the nostalgic animated children's show to begin with, and we're going to sit down and discuss them and see which ones are better than the other, and assume and because we put a announcement out talking about it, but we're going to sit down and discuss it and predict this week who is going to be triumphant as the greatest childhood show of all time.
Yeah, and you can actually decide who the greatest childhood show is gonna be using our Instagram. We are gonna be running polls all this week and probably next week, assuming things go well. Um, so yeah, it starts Tuesday, starts tomorrow. The brackets will begin, the polls will happen. But before that, we have to make our predictions on who we think is, well, gonna win. So let me pull up the bracket. I'll show you the bracket. There it is. All right. So should we start off with top down or one side to one side, or
Sure,
should?
sure, sure. Let's go ahead.
All right. So let's go SpongeBob versus The Amazing World of Gumball.
So obviously here, SpongeBob wins it. As much as I hate to say it,
Yeah.
SpongeBob has
Honestly,
been the triumphant winner of several Choice Awards in the past few years. And note, Kids' Choice Awards aren't just limited to Cartoon Network, or I mean, sorry, Nickelodeon. Kids' Choice Awards have to do with across all networks. It's definitely become the one that takes it home all the time. So I don't have a doubt in my mind that SpongeBob's going to be one of the last contenders.
yeah. I'll be completely honest. I kind of hope neither of them win because I feel like, yeah, they're good, but they're way too like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. They're just too. What's the word I'm looking for?
Predictable is my thing. Like it'd be too predictable for them to win.
Yeah, I feel like they're too overrated sometimes. I think that's
Oh,
the
all
word
the
I was
time.
looking for.
And I feel like recently it's gotten to the point where it's bad because they're trying to be quote unquote woke by making these mod type things happen. But I just honestly feel the idea of taking all of these modern topics and putting them into your TV show and taking away from the aspect that SpongeBob lived a life in which that it was just jellyfishing and laughs and all this stuff. And I feel like if you're gonna take away from it by trying to talk about some sort of politics or something like in that,
Yeah,
it's less enjoyable at that point.
The SpongeBob pandemic episode, that was a thing.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I think they took that off, so you can't see that anywhere. But that was a thing.
Yep, it was.
So yeah, however much we both hate to say it, it's probably gonna be SpongeBob. For that one at
Yep.
least. The next one
Yep.
is Little Bear versus Franklin.
So this is a very tough one. I will not lie. Both of which have some nostalgic type meaning in my heart.
Mhm.
I personally watched Little Bear more than Franklin. I did not watch Franklin very much. Now, granted, Franklin has had a lot more reboots, and Nickelodeon has been more inclined to make them happen more.
Yeah,
Considering you started with Franklin, then
Franklin
there
and
was one
Friends.
reboot I forget the name of, and then there was Franklin and Friends that came after
Yeah.
that. Little Bear, there was just Little Bear. Now, here's my thing. Little Bear was a good show to fall asleep to. You know it was time to go to bed because you watched the one episode of the Backyardigans and you knew the Little Bear was on next, and it was about 8 o'clock and the sun was going down, and it was about time for you to go to bed. I just like the idea of the animation style of that show being that it was hand drawn and such, but also it was based off of a better book series, in my opinion. Both of which were based off a book series, but I strongly agree. I strongly have the feeling that Little Bear was a much better book series.
Yep. I would tend to agree with you there. Now, I have the feeling the next one we're gonna have a little argument over Thomas the Tank Engine versus Bob the Builder.
So I'm gonna go and say Thomas.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say because I personally I like Thomas. That was like one of my favorite shows growing up.
I just feel like Thomas the Tank Engine is more iconic because there's been a movie series made about them, and they've changed the animation style so much, and they've been rebooted several times. It's just a more iconic show.
Now, if we're talking about the new reboot, I really hope it won't win, but I'm talking about more the original. The new reboot can like go jump off a cliff for all I care. But if we're talking about the original
Exactly.
series, if we're talking about the original series, that that for me would win. Now, the next one I feel like could be interesting. Phineas the Ferb, Phineas and Ferb versus Handy Manny.
So here's my thing. I feel Phineas and Ferb wins this by a landslide by virtue take into account Phineas and Ferb has a much better recognition point because there are so many other songs that you could listen to from Phineas and Ferb, and so many other references you can make from Phineas and Ferb that make people be like, "Oh yeah, I watched that show when I was younger." If you start singing the Handy Manny song, that's about the only thing that will trigger people from saying it. But you can sing the theme song from Phineas and Ferb. You can sing the "Everything Is Better with Perry" song from the movie, the Cross the Second Dimension movie. That entire Cross the Second Dimension movie was an absolute masterpiece, don't mind you. And I just honestly feel it wins because there are so many pop culture things that you can go with it. And if people see you wearing an orange and white shirt, they're going to be like, that's a Phineas and Ferb reference. Whereas if they see you wearing a yellow shirt and a tool belt, they're not going to be, that's a Handy Manny reference. I
Yeah.
just feel like pop culture has taken Phineas and Ferb better than they have Handy Manny.
Now I like them both, but I would have to agree with you there. Phineas and Ferb is probably gonna win. Now, Wow Wow Wubsy versus Ninjago.
Before
They're
we
like
talk about
two separate things.
before we talk about this, I do want to make the point with Phineas and Ferb, they've had a lot more guest stars that are recognizable. Take into account
They had
in
Guy
the Cross,
Fieri.
they had Slash from Guns N' Roses play with them in Across the Second Dimension movie. I just feel like
Yeah.
also with the channel that they were working with, being as that Handy Manny was working with Disney Junior and Phineas and Ferb was working with Disney XD. Disney XD just has a better platform. And take into account, I was watching a video of Dan Povenmire discuss how Perry the Platypus's theme had come about, and it's so funny how they can just take something as to go to Wikipedia and read off the definition, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Um, I just feel like all around Phineas and Ferb is a better show. But on to Wow Wow Wubsy versus Ninjago. This is obviously this is one that I'm torn about because
Yeah. I feel like so
Wow Wow
I
Wubsy was good, but like so was Ninjago. Now I have been rewatching Ninjago here a lot lately. Granted that I had wanted the nostalgia kick and everything like that, but I think it had more effect on me because after I watched Ninjago again, I actually found myself buying more Japanese centered culture items, such as a whole kimono, like the jacket that some of the men and women wore in Japan. I found myself buying that and more um and such like that and studying into Japanese culture and stuff and wanting to even learn Japanese instruments like the Japanese pan flute that the theme song for Ninjago is played on. And that goes to the point of if you look at the Ninjago theme, someone can whistle that like they can easily whistle it because it was on a flute and they can be like, "Oh, I've heard that before. That's from Ninjago." Whereas if you play the Wow Wow Wubsy theme, it is like a quick high into like nostalgia. Um and when people say, like for instance, when Ninjago had first come out, I thought I was the you know what on the playground because um I had spun around with friends. I'd picked up sticks and spun in circles with friends because it was me just pretending to have elemental powers and such. I just honestly feel that Ninjago had a bigger impact on our imaginations as children, and I think also it goes back to the point that it has more effects into pop culture than Wow Wow Wubbzy does.
I just
And I also feel there's that double-edged sword that it is owned by one of the biggest companies when it comes to shows right now. After Wow Wow Wubbzy died, Nickelodeon pretty much said, "We don't own that," and Stars bought it. Well, Stars isn't even that relevant, not to mention. Now, Ninjago is actually dying out right now, unfortunately. As much as I hate to say it, they are considering not renewing it for another season because Cartoon Network does not want anything to do with it anymore. What I think they should do is I think Lego should buy full rights because they already do have the full rights, but I think they should stop selling part of it to Cartoon Network and just start putting the episodes on their YouTube for free to watch. Because Cartoon Network had completely taken that and they had ruined it because season 1 and 2 was building up to the final battle between the Golden Ninja and um Lord Garmadon. That was the most gripping first two seasons ever because you had two conflicts here. You had Lord Garmadon and his son, then you had the snakes and the ninja. The Great Devourer was at the end of season 1, and then you had the whole fight between the Overlord and the Golden Ninja at the end of season 2. I just find that the first two seasons of that show were so darn gripping, and nothing really changed in season 3. But season 4, they're like, oh, I guess we're going to introduce air jitsu now. And everyone was blown away when the teaser had come out for that because what, ninja that can fly using their tornado powers? Like, what? Yes, please. I watched that season so fast. And then someone that was the green ninja that didn't get it, that becomes a ghost and then comes back to fight everyone. That's cool too. And then it goes on to even talk about them learning spinjitzu that's like frowned upon, that makes them absolute gods. I just feel like the way they're executing extra things in there, like extra powers and all that, I just feel like it definitely overpowers Wow Wow Wubbzy by a lot.
yeah, and I mean, so I personally didn't really watch Ninjago as a kid.
You strike me as someone that would. That surprises me a little bit.
I watched a couple episodes now and then, but I never really got like fully into it because I was more into like playing with Legos than watching Legos, I guess. Say.
See, that there is the reason why I bought more Legos. That show right there was the reason like I was more keen on buying Legos.
But for me personally, Ninjago is probably gonna win, but I really really like Wow Wow Wubbzy. You know what I'm saying?
I just so here's my thing. Wow Wow Wubbzy had a short reign as showing the world that it was a thing, whereas
Yeah.
Ninjago is going on for like almost 10 years strong. Like Beyblade had just come out when Ninjago had come out, and the Lego had actually hopped on that train. And basically, how it worked is if you bought a ninja that could do spinjitzu, you took their figure and you put them in this little top, and you put your middle and thumb finger or first thumb, and you'd spin it, and you'd put their special weapons on, and they'd hit the weapons on whoever they're fighting, and they'd take someone down, right? So you'd have like the skeleton set from the first season, and then you had the ninja. Well, the skeletons would have axes, while the ninja would have swords or maybe even nunchucks or so if you were to take the nunchucks and spin them, they could get caught on the skeleton's sword and could pull the skeleton down. Or if you were to take the
Your
sword,
mic
it
is
could
popping
smack
a
the
little bit, by the way.
huh?
Your mic was popping.
I just feel like in retrospect that there's been a lot more effect onto the pop culture and future culture of it. Considering it's gotten to the point where I'm doing research on Japanese culture just from some weird Lego kids show, that tells you how much that show means to me.
Yeah. Now, yeah, the next one. This is an interesting one. It's Hey Arnold versus the Rugrats.
Rugrats.
Rugrats?
I feel like so this is a hard one too, but I feel like it was more Hey Arnold was more of the teen to parent type relationship thing, whereas Rugrats was something that the middle child, the teen child, the adult, and the baby could all watch. I just feel like Rugrats brought families together better because it was more centered around the entire family.
Now, I watched neither as a child because I wasn't born, but I've seen them both, and I would have to tend to agree with you. Rugrats would be the winner in that. Now, the
I
next
also
one.
feel like they now Rugrats had a sequel that was very well executed called All Teens, and it was basically where the Rugrats were in high school going through high school problems. The only real sequel that we had to Hey Arnold was him going into the jungle to find his parents, and obviously it was predictable enough to the point where he found his parents. I just feel like there wasn't. It was just so. It was such a predictable show. Now, don't get me wrong, it had a very memorable soundtrack with the whole idea of the jazz piece at the beginning. But it's about it had going for. I was sitting there playing the marimba this morning in band, and I had actually found out the chords for the Rugrats song on marimba, so I started playing it. So it's just little moments like that that have effect onto your everyday life from just some random show. That's what really matters.
Yeah. So, the next one. The next one's really a doozy. It's Jimmy Neutron versus Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse
So
Clubhouse.
I initially I initially thought you were gonna say Fairly Odd Parents, and I was
You
gonna
would
say we've
think.
seen this before. We watched that movie before. We watched Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents
That's
fight.
why I
That's an
didn't do it.
absolute freaking master.
That's why I didn't do it. They've
That
already been
show,
together.
that movie was so good. I'm just saying that movie was an absolute masterpiece. But before we get on to this, I'm torn here too. I didn't particularly like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse because his voice was so darn annoying.
Him.
Like,
Oh.
no, if I really don't want to come into your clubhouse, like, can you shut your
Mickey
mouth
Mouse
and like,
Clubhouse. Come inside and you'll never come out.
yeah, pretty much. I just feel there were a bunch of better spin-offs of Neutron too. Did you ever watch the show Planet Sheen?
I did not know.
That was a spin-off where basically how it works is it's set up like an episode of Jimmy Neutron. Like the theme song is the Jimmy Neutron theme song, and Sheen walks into Jimmy's lab and it said there's a post-it note on the rocket ship and it says Sheen, don't touch this, Jimmy. Well, Sheen presses it and he's taken into outer space, and the Planet Sheen theme song takes over. And it's basically now where Sheen owns his entire planet because he's an Earth dweller. So it's just his quirky little adventures on a planet. I just feel like Jimmy Neutron was better for me because it was much more engaging, and I thought that his dog Goddard, the robot dog, was absolutely freaking adorable. And I wanted a Goddard for myself for so long there, especially because it
I'll be
had
right back.
like
I want to
the
go.
light.
I want to show you something.
That's really my aspect of it being that it's just a better show because it's just more engaging to me personally, which is why I'm defending it in this sense. But I feel like a lot of the people are gonna say, "Oh, well, it's gonna be it."
It's
See,
not.
that's
It's
not
not the same
Goddard, but he
dog,
looks like him.
but
Yeah.
it is a dog. It's a robot dog. Just thought I'd show
Um,
you. This is really old. This is from like the 1990s. That's like old.
that is old.
Sorry for anyone watching. That's yeah.
But like, yeah, I just feel like even though Mickey Mouse Clubhouse was unfortunately a much more uh iconic series to anyone that'll be watching, I just feel like in my eyes, it like I just feel like Jimmy Neutron was better. And Jimmy Neutron, as I said, had really good spin-offs. As I mentioned, that there was a Fairly Odd Parents Jimmy Neutron spin-off that was so freaking cool because when it started, you had the Fairly Odd Parents on one side, and then you had Jimmy Neutron on the other, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy Neutron would have his boombox playing his intro, but then the Fairly Odd Parents would have a war between the two, and the music notes would hit each other, and they'd see who could win.
Yep.
That was just downright cool.
It was. No, I personally watched like Mickey Mouse like every day. So I would have to say Mickey Mouse only because like that's what I watched. So, this is also interesting because while we're not too different in age, you watched different shows than me because of age.
Yeah, no, and as my dad mentioned in the YouTube chat, I had actually watched a crap ton of um, SpongeBob as much as he hated that because years later I would make the SpongeBob noises and stuff. So that didn't go over too well.
Do 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 do. You know what I'm saying?
So like when I'm what 2 years older than you, I think.
Maybe. I don't know.
So by the time you were born, like the older shows like Boomerang from Cartoon Network and all those older networks had already died out.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Boomerang, but it got taken off like the channel list really quickly.
Yeah, see, when I was born, that channel list was still around.
Yeah, I used to watch like Dexter's Laboratory, all that good stuff. But
I just honestly feel like they should have absorbed Boomerang because now that they absorbed Boomerang, it's just like an absolute crap show. Not that Cartoon Network absorbed Boomerang, it's an absolute crap show.
yeah. So, all right. The last one is Transformers, the 1984 animated, versus Star Trek, the animated series. Now,
So
neither of us
this is
really,
one I have not watched.
yeah, neither of us really grew up with that. Just like how I used to dislike the Minions, but then I grew up.
I don't like the Minions movies.
So I have the feeling we're gonna have to have some help from some of our viewers that might have seen that, because I have no clue what we're talking about there, honestly. Um,
Dad,
yeah,
Dad.
we're gonna need
So
them.
So I can say for sure I have watched several other shows that are Transformers themed. For instance, I watched Transformers Prime and Transformers Rescue Bots,
Mm-hmm.
and those were pretty good. I actually like Transformers Prime because it was the first show since the Transformers movies with Shia LaBeouf that, in my opinion, was actually gripping because there was a lot of problems between the Autobots and the Decepticons, and that was shown because it was the first animated show where we saw an Autobot get killed. Like an Autobot died in the first episode.
So yeah, honestly, I have the feeling Transformers will win.
It's just a more icon. Well, I don't know. That's not saying that if people take into account that Star Trek, the Next Generation, and all these Star Trek series have existed, I do feel like it'll be a tough choice. But I do think if they take into account that people like Mark Wahlberg, Shia LaBeouf, and Michael Bay have worked on
Michael Bay. I
Transformers, it
want to
might
interview
get the
Michael
win.
Bay. I swear. I'm gonna. That's gonna happen. You're gonna need to help me with that one though.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah. You're gonna help me with that. Help me, everyone. Let me get Michael Bay on Seymour's basement. Friday nights
Okay.
at 7.
No, no, no. Shameless plug. Shameless plug. Shameless plug. We do not condone. We do not condone that here.
But we do.
No, we really don't.
Too bad the children said yay.
That's just the soundboard, ladies and gents.
Nope. Not a soundboard.
Totally is.
Nope. Not a soundboard. Anyway,
Yeah.
so in the end, who do we think the main winner is gonna be out of all of them?
SpongeBob.
I know, as much as I hate to say it, it's gonna be SpongeBob. Because
Yep.
I don't want it to be SpongeBob. I really don't,
I don't either.
honestly.
I really don't want it to be.
But it's probably gonna be. But you have to take into account that will not be the main winner. Because then it's gonna be the live action. Then whoever wins the live action is gonna go up against probably SpongeBob.
Yep.
We're gonna determine the main winner. So I don't have the bracket for the live action. Um, but who do you think's gonna win the live action?
Um, I'm not gonna put too much thought in it. Being, I just really want them to win. I really just want Imagination Movers to win.
That's fair. Honestly, I'm hoping. Okay, not much people know this show, and I really hate that. But Ubi, we talked about that a couple times. Um,
Several.
yeah, several. Shh, it's probably not gonna win, but I'd like it to at least get somewhat far. I just really, really
Mm,
enjoyed that show.
yeah, I can see that point.
Like I most definitely like that. That's one of the other shows I grew up with. Yeah. So that's pretty much all we have for that topic. Was there anything else we need to talk about?
Regarding the shows, no, I think we're good.
All right. Well, what else is there?
Um,
Are we missing something?
I
Not
don't,
the shows related, but
I don't think we're missing anything.
we're kind of only at 30 minutes. I feel like I don't want to cut it short, but I don't know if there's anything else. Let me
I think that's it. Um, I definitely feel like whenever we do a bracket, the first episode will always be the shortest one because we don't have um audience input.
Yeah, yeah. We're probably just gonna end it off here, honestly. And
Yeah,
the bracket's starting tomorrow on our Instagram, so make sure you vote because like that's gonna determine the future.
I guess it will in
It's gonna
retrospect.
change the future of everything, maybe or something. I don't know. But yes,
Eh,
so make sure to do that. Instagram is the Delight Show. Also join our Discord, which is also the Delight Show. But that's in the link in the bio in our Instagram. Very confusing, but yeah, do that. Join the Discord, join the Instagram, join them all. So I have been your delightful host, Seymour.
um, I've been your delightful host, Grape.
Grape. Yep. And we'll see you all next Monday, 8 p.m. Be there or be square.
Or be a
Like,
triangle.
or be obtuse. Yeah.
Or be whatever you want,
Be a
because it's
circle.
2021.
Could be brown. You could be purple. It could be violet sky or something. I don't know, man.
You can shut up. You can shut up. You can please, dear God, shut up. I hate
Yeah,
that meme. I
I
hate
do
that
too,
meme.
honestly. That's just the
The
only
only good
thing I
time I
do.
ever watched that meme was when Will Ferrell sang it with
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds. Yes.
Reynolds. I don't.
What
I'll
what
tell
what
you.
a what a man. What a piece of man.
What a piece of man. Alrighty. Well, we'll see you all next week.
Don't die.
Yes. Don't die. Be bad.